guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're very fortunate to be joined by the Treasurer and VPO of BSOC for this year. To start off, for a means of introduction, why don't we start with your name, your degree, and your favourite place to eat on campus?
Sure, I guess I'll go first. Hi guys, my name is Jenson. I'm currently a third year studying the Bachelor of Commerce, and I do double major in both finance and information systems. And I guess my favourite place to eat on campus used to be here, but it's a quad food court. So essentially chicken stitty and chips with gravy. It was a bargain, $10.50 meal. Unfortunately, it's not here anymore. So right now, it'll probably be Yalla Eats. And Aimie?
Nice. I'm Aimie. I'm a third year studying commerce and information systems, majoring in marketing. And my favorite place to eat on campus would have to be GYG.
Beautiful. How about you, Anne?
For me, I don't think anything beats the $6 roti you can get at Mark Village. So good. What about you?
For me, a classic used to be Yalla Eats, but due to shrinkflation, where the serving size for the rice bowl has gotten abysmally smaller, I've since shifted allegiances to Guzman.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Speaking of, Angela, what do we have in store for these today?
Well, Amy especially, you'll be happy to know, we actually bought a whole bunch of Guzman. We're just gonna, eat it here. We got some of our favorite meals, some of Jenson's favorite meals too, and some of yours as well. Oh, so we hope. But we'll bring it out.
Damn.
Wow.
Here you go, the mother load.
Amy, to kick off the mukbang.
There's a mukbang.
It's mukbang, right?
Yeah. Why don't you read through the little receipt we've got in front of you, just to help the listeners see what we've got.
Okay, so we have 3 beef tacos. We have 3 pork tacos.
We have 2 beef tacos. I ate 1.
We have, what is that? A spicy ground beef burrito bowl with no beans and guac. That's my meal. And we have a nacho
Mild chicken.
bowl.
And that's my meal.
That's your meal. And churros and fries. Wow.
Wow.
Jenson, do you want to start the unboxing?
Sure, my pleasure.
I hope you guys are hungry.
Yeah. So I guess the first one we have here is 2 beef tacos. It's pretty interesting. Like, do you guys want to try? 3 pork tacos, a burrito, Cali spicy chicken. We have a ton of churros. A nacho fries. Last but not least, a burrito bowl.
Amazing.
Wow. All right, I think we can get started with eating. Dig into whatever you want, and then we'll get kicked off with some questions as well.
Amy?
Feel free.
Beautiful. So while we get stuck in,
Do you want me to have some?
yeah.
All right. So, I'll just say the exact same thing you did. Okay. So while we get stuck in, I'm kind of curious to know. So you guys have both had leadership positions throughout BSOC, from directorship to all the way to executive. So I guess, what is the biggest learning you've taken out of your 3 years at uni so far, including BSOC? And what do you wish you could have told your first year self?
I think my answer for both parts of the question kind of go together. I remember in my first year camp, my camp leader actually said to me, "You get out what you put in." I think that message has really stuck with me for all 3 years of my university experience. In terms of BSOC, I don't think that I would have been where I am today without it. So genuinely, like, by taking the first step to, don't look at me, I'm gonna laugh. Taking the first step to like apply, put yourself out there, put yourself in situations that would make you uncomfortable, and take every opportunity possible, is essentially what's made me who I am. And yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just go about my journey into BSOC. So what I like to say about BSOC is for a three-stage transition from your subcom to from a director role and towards exec role, it's sort of like a progression towards your professional skills and your life in general. So just starting off with subcom. Subcom is a way for you to interact with other people with the same mindset, same goals and strategy that you guys have, like even for you guys evolving into maybe executive next year. So as subcom, what I like to say is your networking year. And what I say by networking is you get to meet other people, meet other subcom, have a great time as well, and with all the social events leading on as well. And when you're a subcom, you start picking a lot of nitty gritty tasks. Like you guys, and even us as well as subcom, we start making like CPs, card photos. So enhancing your UI UX experience, knowing how to target and market audience, as well as there's some of the hard and soft skills such as Excel work, Google Forms, like just attracting a general audience in general. So just moving on to your directorship year, it's more so about your leadership positions. You're leading a group of maybe 6 to 9 to 10 subcom even, and that's a really great way to look after the subcom which you were in your first year. So a great learning curve for me was leadership comes from the top. And so I looked up a lot to my directors and execs when I was both subcom and director. They gave me a great initiative, great drive and motivation towards what I am today, essentially. And towards executive, it's more so about making the decisions yourself. It really put myself out there in the confidence towards like a BSOC, a society which has about 13,000 members. You're the core person who drives a lot of the budgeting, the handling of how the events are run in general. So pretty much what I told my first year self is not to really rush things. Essentially, things will come your way when you just be more patient, understanding, have discipline towards what you want in the future. So those are my 3 points and things I'll tell my younger self.
Amazing. I think where we're at as well, I can definitely see both sides of what both of you are saying, in the sense that you get out what you put into genuine commitment is the only way to genuinely grow yourself, and then also waiting for opportunities and also being conscious of opportunities that do arise around you.
Yeah, and also taking risks. Like, you can't really develop yourself or grow if you don't step out of your comfort zone. I know you hear that all the time, but it's like genuine, it's true. Yeah.
Fun fact, my old Instagram DP used to be a graphic that I made in year 6, like on some phone app, and it used to say all progress takes place outside the comfort zone.
You told me this, that is
And
so
it
cringe.
was,
You still have it?
I do, yeah. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
And it was behind a Bugatti Veyron.
Damn.
Oh, sorry, in front of, like, naturally.
I would have topped you.
Yeah. Alright, beautiful. Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, transition to that, because Jenson, you did mention a fair bit about leadership and the sort of transition you've experienced, especially through BSOC.
Yep.
But how do you think you've grown as a leader, like personally, in terms of your outlook on things over the last 2.5 years or so? Obviously, Aimie yourself as well.
I think my leadership style has definitely changed from second year to third year, as I went from a marketing director to an executive. In second year, being in charge and responsible for upskilling, developing, and also bonding my subcom, in comparison to now where I lead, manage, and support 4 different portfolios. My style of leadership has definitely changed. I think last year, a lot of my main focuses were bonding, upskilling, and I acted more so as like a maternal figure and a mentor, as opposed to the way I do now. And I was more so directly responsible for teaching them a lot more hard skills, as opposed to making like wider, greater decisions that also impact like the wider student community and overall all of BSOC. I think that leadership in my second year taught me how to really get to know each and every single individual within my subcommittee really well, know what works for each person, know how to like form a very strong team. And that kind of helped me develop my leadership style for executive. I think as vice president of operations, working with such a wide variety of different portfolios and also extremely different people,
Yeah, so Aimie, with that, how important do you think like relationship management is, especially as the leader of a smaller group?
I think it is extremely important, because you need to really understand how each team works in order to successfully help guide them. And considering that I manage 4 portfolios, every single portfolio is very different. The way I manage, the way I lead, the way I support them is very different. You have to find what works for every individual, what works for what team, and what is overall best, so that it helps me make better management decisions for my division. I think what I've really learnt is to have confidence in my leadership abilities, have trust in others, but also have trust in myself in order to make really high level decisions and kind of back myself when it comes to really important like major tasks that like our society is like delivering and stuff like that.
I think the biggest thing that a lot of people listening now would ask is, how do you stay motivated first and foremost yourself, but then also how do you motivate the people around you? So both of you coming through positions of leadership and being in positions of leadership now. Because I feel like where we're at now in terms of the uni cycle is a lot of people in societies are considering trying out for directorship, whether that be in BSOC or otherwise. But a lot of people are also considering stuff like vacationers or traineeship programs. So stuff like that, how do you motivate yourself and stay motivated? But especially when you come to directorship, you're suddenly thrust into the deep end of the pool with subcom coming in a couple of months. So how do you actually motivate those around you as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I generally think the general consensus of motivating yourself is doing the things you love. So of course, coming to directorship, I feel like for us four, we can say that we definitely do agree that you wouldn't be in this position if you didn't like what you were doing. I think the biggest thing is being a subcom, you have thoughts of being a director because you want to be in their shoes, your director's shoes within the future. You want to be that person to lead your subcom. And at the end of the day, you feel really good because you've helped someone that you probably didn't even know at the beginning of the year, upskill to this person that you see them today. And that yourself, you feel a lot of credit, and that credit pretty much motivates you. So in general, I feel like a lot of us, I'm doing full-time work. I've been doing it since all my second year and my third year, and I find it really hard to actually get a pretty good work-life balance. So essentially you have full-time work, you might have to work overtime and going into uni work and BSOC work as well. So the things you do and the things you love, that generally will play a part into your motivation. So like I said before, I do really enjoy teaching people, making sure that events run for all the people within BSOC, for all the business community as well. So I guess that is the really the kind of the mind behind the reason why I'm so motivated doing things. To motivate people around you, it is pretty much you leading by example and you showing them that it can be done. And if they can see an example of it being done, they can more likely to ask questions, more likely to let down their barriers and ask you for advice, things that maybe you did that they want to know. So these are the factors where I feel like will motivate you and the people around you as well. Aimie, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, kind of like what Jenson said. I think a big part of like motivating yourself is being passionate about what you're doing and what you're trying to set out to achieve. I think for motivation for life in general, I think it's really important to chase, tangible goals and, set achievable goals and benchmarks for yourself so that you can become one step closer to where you want to be. Like, for example, for your career, like setting those goals, applying for interns, applying for vaccies, getting those, and also like doing things that you love and things that will help you grow as an individual is really important. I think for leadership in terms of directorship, one of the main things that motivates me is being able to see like tangible change and difference in what you do. Not only does that come to like the actual work that you produce, the things that you can see visibly, but I think that also comes in like the shape of like the impact that you make on people and seeing how they develop as well.
I mean, just looking from my perspective, like you three are probably three of the busiest people I know. Just how do you sort of make that internal decision and consider it like, okay, my schedule's getting a bit too hectic, how do I sort of cut this part out? Or how do you sort of prioritize your own sort of life? Angela?
Do you want to kick off me? Well, I don't think, like, how do I phrase this? I don't think good things really come to you, like, and opportunities come to you without sacrifice. Like, you do have to make compromises here and there, and it's just something that, everyone's going to have to do eventually. It's just, learning how to, I guess, maintain that balance between, maybe your social life, your health, like your sleep, which is, something I'm pretty sure all of us had to cut out sometimes to get work done, to meet deadlines and stuff. But that's just kind of how it's going to be, not just, in a society standpoint, but even like for work, sometimes you're just going to have to work overtime, sacrifice a couple things. But I guess it's important to also make sure you make time for yourself. So I guess a lot of like balancing your hectic life comes from giving yourself downtime and a lot of rest in between as well. At least that's the same. That's how it is for me. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same for you, Jensen.
Yeah, definitely. Those are really great points, Angela. I do really believe in your part when you did say about compromise. A lot of time when you're, especially around this period of second and third year, the competitiveness is really high. The amount of work you do at BSOC is also not a joke. It is quite very, very stressing, especially when you have very tight schedules and things you have to produce results in a short amount of time as well. So definitely, I like to say the amount of times you work is the amount of times you play or have downtime. So sometimes even after work, I do prefer just to lie on my bed and maybe just watch TikTok or like YouTube for like, who knows, like 2-3 hours, and then decide to play League for another until like 3 a.m. Yeah, so definitely you tend to prioritize things at the end of the day of the things you enjoy. And I think me personally, I like to prioritize like work and the people around me, as well as my family and my dog.
Yeah, I mean, Angela, what you were saying before about losing sleep, and then Jensen, if what you were saying in terms of if it's worth it to you, it's worth it. Like, Angela, do you remember what we did the night before we left for camp?
Yes. Oh my god.
Say it.
It was just like, horrible.
Yes.
But,
What?
no, was it like the careers guide or the first year's guide that we set up?
Yeah, so we had to leave for
Oh
camp
my God, that's
at like
true.
7:30, leave to get to camp on time.
Yeah.
And myself, Angela and Josh, and Amy was there for most of it as well, were on call working on a project till about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
the night before camp.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when we look back, I don't think, this for me at least, I don't know if you two agree, but it doesn't seem like a chore,
No.
because for me at least, it was pretty worth it, pretty enjoyable at the very least. So yeah, I mean, how do you two feel about like that night in specific?
I was talking to Angela about this during our one-on-one, but like honestly, out of like all the memories I made in BSOC that night was actually really, really enjoyable. But I feel like even though we were working on the first year's guide, and even though we had a very strict deadline, we had to get it done. I feel like us all working on something that like we grown to like become extremely proud of, and also just spending all that time together. Like yes, it was work, but us being together, us like staying up really late and just kind of talking about like a bunch of random things. It was like honestly really enjoyable. Like the sacrifice sleep was worth it. In my opinion.
I mean, yeah, like I said, like good things don't come without some compromise somewhere. And it was a really good thing. Like I was very proud of what we ended up producing.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Amy? How do you sort of cut out the parts of your life which you don't see providing value to you anymore? How do you make that judgment?
I think honestly that's a really hard one for me because I'm a bit of a workaholic and I tend to struggle with prioritizing my own like I guess mental health or like my own downtime when it comes to other things. Like I'm very much a person that will like, for example, when it comes to BSOC work or uni work or like assessment stuff like that, I always put BSOC, uni and like anything other than myself first. But I think, you know, being BSOC for the past 3 years, yes, there is a certain time period where you should be prioritizing the work and the things that are important. But for me, like when I feel myself getting overwhelmed or when I feel myself kind of like burning out, I know that I need to take time off for myself. And I think taking time off is extremely important and normal when it comes to like work or even directorship. As long as you are communicating to your team, people that are relying on you, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just pivot off that. How important do you guys think communication is in like just life? Just being completely open, being transparent, that type of thing.
I think communication is one of the most fundamental parts of any relationship or anything in general. I think if you can communicate effectively, it is like one of the greatest strengths. Something that I always say to like my friends or even people in BSOC, my directors and the exec team is essentially like, what happened?
Joseph.
Oh no. No one can read your thoughts. No one can really know what you are going through or like what you're dealing with, what you're experiencing, unless you actually communicate that effectively to them. No, like, for example, like with my directors, if they go MIA or they disappear. Like I can't effectively help them. I can't, gauge out how they like what they're dealing with unless they actually tell me directly. So I think that goes for like all walks of your life, like whether it be like communication with your parents, communication with your friends, if you're in a relationship, like in order to develop and grow together, you need to be able to communicate to them about like things that like make you uncomfortable, your boundaries, what your expectations are, and this just helps all parties involved kind of like grow, foster, and develop.
And I guess if you kind of want to strip communication down to its like really basic level, just acknowledging people saying things. Something as easy as, especially at work or any like professional emails, like sending an email back in thanks or acknowledgement. I know, kind of just leaving conversation empty like that is just leads to all sorts of miscommunication and stuff.
I think the biggest thing that we've seen, because Angela and I work together, the biggest thing we've seen as well, and something that one of us, not going to say who, I got called out on, is not responding yes or no to like Google Calendar invites. Like, you can say it verbally, but having that form of actual communication, something that you can set in writing, is obviously just something that helps, especially when you're managing something large or managing your entire week as a calendar.
Yeah.
So yeah, just communication or being transparent is very, very big.
Yeah, just echoing that. It's pretty much basic courtesy, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you put yourself in, let's say you're the one sending the invite. Imagine someone not replying to you. What would you feel? That's pretty much vice versa as well. So pretty much, even if it's a simple yes or no, and you can't go, just put maybe even a maybe, or just message that person basically saying that, hi, it's pretty tentative. I'm not too sure if I can make this date. Something like that just basically goes a long way compared to like ghosting or just not replying as well.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that, in terms of the learning curve, that sort of transitions nicely into what we want to ask to you both next is, what's the biggest mistake you guys have made throughout any sort of leadership position that you guys have held, whether that be uni, BSOC, otherwise? And I guess, what did you learn from it, or what are the biggest learnings that you want to help others with from that mistake?
Mine kind of ties into our last point about communication, but I think one of the biggest mistakes I made last year personally as a director was there was a very long period in my directorship where I was predominantly doing a lot of the work myself. I love them both as people, by the way, we've gotten past this, but both of my co-directors kind of fell off and went MIA during directorship, and it really did have a really profound impact on me personally. It meant that I had to do a lot of the work myself, and if you've been in BSOC and you know BSOC, like, the reason why certain portfolios have certain number of directors is because that portfolio genuinely does require the work of all those directors to be there, present and working. So during that time period, instead of communicating to my co-directors directly, and also I think I should have communicated directly to my VP as well, I kind of took it upon myself to just continue working by myself, doing everything by myself, and not really approaching them or like going about it in a way that would have helped me in the long term. I think what it did to me essentially was I burnt out very, very badly, and even during my burnout I was still working and still doing a lot of work. I sacrificed a lot of sleep, and it had a really bad lasting impact on my mental health. Even when I did try to communicate to them, nothing really changed, and I didn't continue to strive to better the situation. So it was just kind of like a very long path, and I actually didn't really tell how badly it impacted me until the end of the year to them, and I didn't even tell my VPO until the end of the year as well. And so looking back now, I wish that I had communicated effectively to more people involved so that I didn't get myself in that situation, I guess.
Yeah. With that, how do you actually go about talking to maybe like a dysfunctional team or a dysfunctional group, even in a work setting? Like, it's obviously a very difficult conversation to have, and personally, I'm the type of person where, unless it's bad, I try not to have confrontational conversations.
Yeah.
And so like, that's always something tricky that I haven't really, or I'm not really sure how to navigate or approach. So I mean, does anyone sort of know the best way around that?
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump in there. That was actually going to tie into my response, basically. I think the biggest thing about my weakness and a lot of people's weakness is like having your say. So a lot of times, sometimes like you may have that additional pressure put on you, but like, oh, I really have to do this, or I have to make sure that my group is perfect. Well, the actual answer for that is like nothing's perfect, right? At the end of the day, a lot of time is molding your responses, the way you think, the way you can handle a team into pretty much what you want. Yeah, so say if like for work, for example, right? I'm pretty sure like all you guys would be like, or your managers will ask you, oh, can you do this task for me? And quickly, just like that, you'd be like, yes, without even thinking, giving a thought. So I feel like sometimes you have to put yourself out there and make yourself known and have room to say no, especially when you can't do it, given the amount of time you have. And that really ties into managing your expectations of things. Sometimes you may be too eager to start maybe a new job, start a new project, working with new group members, even BSOC work as well. Having that jumping the gun pretty much sets your expectations way too high, whereas sometimes you may not be delivering that high as well, and that may take a toll on your thoughts, your mental health, and just overthinking in general, which I feel like is a very big factor. So mitigating this, I do agree that when you do come to things, have empathy and pretty much kind of get to know the people you're going to be working with, understanding what their strengths, weaknesses are, and work towards them. Understanding like maybe the time schedules, understanding like where they come from, like who they are, and just who they are as a person essentially. And that really ties together what being a leader is, and pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, 100% understand where you're coming from, gents. Just with that as well, I'll ask you two, because both of you are quite design focused and have a lot of tangible output, both in terms of both of your jobs, but also your roles within BSOC and your previous roles as well. How do you actually go about managing people's expectations in regards to what is expected from you, or an expectation that might place on yourself, versus what's one, feasible, but two, within your own sort of capabilities?
Well, I'll start. I think, well, to begin with, I'd say a personal weakness of mine is that I recognize that a lot of the times I'm way too ambitious, or I'm really idealistic. So I'll, like Jensen said, jump the gun. I'll kind of think I can like tackle tasks that are maybe bigger than myself or bigger than the capabilities of my team and stuff like that. But I guess it's just, that's where having a team really is useful, because they're kind of there to, tell you, hey, maybe this isn't feasible, like let's take it back down to this, or to tell you, hey, we can make this happen, but XYZ steps have to be put in place, something like that. I think in terms of just like communicating to others, so being both in operations, Aimie and I, we kind of deal with everybody else in the society as well, and just sometimes I'd say it is a blessing and a curse. Definitely you want to facilitate all these people coming to you with really great ideas, but sometimes it's a little bit out of your reach with technical know-how and such. So I guess this ties back into really being able to communicate with them, kind of, hey, this is what I can do, is there a way that we can work out a compromise, and just really negotiating and just talking to them, seeing what they want to get out of it and how you can help facilitate that. Because I don't want to say no to anything, like Jensen as well. You obviously want to make people's visions come to life. Yeah, just
Nice.
Communicating pretty much. What about you, Aimie?
Yeah, Angela said that really well.
Yeah, I mean, we were having a talk a couple of days ago. We actually had a brief for BSOC that came to us. It was a very good brief. It was very sound, very well fleshed out. The first sort of process went very well. But then when it comes to the feedback process, just a lack of understanding of exactly the internal processes that we put in place from the requesting port just made it a bit difficult to, I guess, satisfy what was asked, just especially because they didn't know exactly what the back end looked like. And I guess just that, where you had to put your foot down and be like, look, based on where we're at, based on what you guys are asking, it's probably not feasible within the next hour or two. If you guys need this and if you guys are desperate to have it done, we can get back to you later tonight. But I mean, just communicating that again, where you guys said communicating that, especially promptly with something like that with a strict deadline, I feel like that was probably the best course of action. We could be very clear and very blunt, saying, look, not feasible, my apologies, we can do better next time.
It's kind of funny when you say that because I generally think that BSOC is our organizational structure is very similar to companies. When I do say that is, let's say we want something actioned, we put in a request for, let's say, a certain operations team, and then we just expect it to get back by. And that essential feedback process that we do have in place for, let's say, CPs, infographics, that pretty much is the same along the board. But just within the BSOC, we have a more friendly, more trusting nature. So we get an opportunity to basically hop on a Discord call anytime, and then just work on these changes as well. So I feel like the good thing about being in BSOC is because we do replicate sort of an organizational structure, it gives you kind of a hands-on experience of what you may be expecting within a corporate setting. And that might be definitely number one, the ghosting, the time period which someone takes to reply to you, the lack of detail when they do reply to you. So these three aspects that cover pretty much the organizational process, a lot of times is something you may need to be working on in the future when you do work in, let's say, a corporate setting. Sometimes people are just very different in general. People have different working styles, mindsets, and ways of saying things. Let's say even text someone may be passive aggressive, but they don't really mean it. So I feel like the biggest thing is to overcome overthinking and overcoming what you may be expecting from someone. And at the end of the day, just be the bigger person, be friendly, be the person who wants to learn, making sure that your action gets delivered on time, and doing whatever it takes. But of course, having a manage expectation as well as a point where if you can't handle it anymore, do rate it to someone and don't keep it within yourself, because that'll just end up pretty much burning yourself out.
Right, beautiful. I mean, thanks so much, guys. I'm sure both Angel and myself and also the listeners at home got a lot out of that. Yeah, thanks so much for being guests. And yeah, anything last words?
Any last words?
Not really.
No.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, guys. What a privilege.
Thank you guys.
You.